Good evening, everyone. Well, before I begin, I would like to invite you all to take a second. And I invite you all, like men and women, and if you can, just close your eyes for a moment and take a deep breath, because why not? Although maybe don't do that if you are driving. So just take a moment and I want you to tell me what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear or when you think about the word motherhood. I don't want you to think deeply into that, just the very first thing that comes to mind. Is it a picture? Is it a sensation? Maybe for mothers, it's going to be a feeling, a sensation. Is it a, a flashback, a memory, someone you know, a neighbor, maybe your mother, maybe a picture of a baby? Did you think of love, relationship, responsibility, exhaustion? Maybe all of them? So I would like to see your responses in the chat group. Compassion, we have compassion, love, a lot of things. Maybe all the things that I mentioned. Yes. And I want you to tell us like the very first thing that come to mind when you heard the word baby, missing, missing. I'm not sure I know what you mean by missing. So we have compassion, love, a baby. Well, today I would like to share with you some reflections about motherhood, not only as a biological experience, but as a profound journey of awareness, of transformation, and learning. Normally, when we think about motherhood, we often focus on the baby, like some of us said, sleepless nights. Thank you for your responses. Yeah, normally when we think about motherhood, we often focus on the baby, on the pregnancy, on the birth, on caring for the child, on the sleepless nights. But motherhood is not only the birth of a child, it is also the birth of a new version of the mother herself. Pregnancy and childbirth are not only physical events, they are deeply emotional, psychological, and even philosophical experiences. They invite the woman to rediscover her strength, to rediscover her patience, her intuition, and her capacity for love. And as a new mother myself, I realized that motherhood is not only about raising a child, it is also about growing as a human being. It is really a continuous process of learning about life, about the human body, about responsibility, vulnerability, and emotional intelligence. In fact, it is a deep human experience that develops multiple forms of intelligence and awareness. And when a woman approaches this transformation with mindful observation and reflection, the experience becomes a source of knowledge about human development, emotional intelligence, and even the beginnings of life itself. So, in today's session, I would like to explore with you how the journey from pregnancy to early motherhood reveals new skills, new forms of intelligence, and new perspectives on life in general. So now, let us imagine that we are all on a train together. And our first stop is gonna be, I think you guessed it, pregnancy. I think we can all agree that pregnancy is one of the most remarkable transformations the human body can experience. Physically, the body adapts in an extraordinary way to support the growth of a new life. There is hormones changes, the body shape that changes, the energy levels that fluctuates, and all these changes remind us that a human body has an incredible capacity for adaptation. But pregnancy is not only a physical transformation, it is also a psychological one. In fact, many women experience a wide range of emotions during pregnancy. We experience joy, excitement, anxiety, curiosity, and sometimes uncertainty, and maybe all of them at once. And these emotional changes are actually natural because pregnancy introduces a new reality. And that reality is the anticipation of becoming responsible for another human being. And during this time, women often become more reflective. They begin to think about the future, about family, about her values, about the values that she hopes to transmit to her child. So, in many ways, pregnancy becomes a period of deep self awareness. This phase is so fascinating because two forms of development are happening at the same time. We have the baby that is developing in the womb and the mother who is developing within herself. Exactly, it is a radical change in life. And one of the most interesting aspects of pregnancy is the way it gradually reveals new skills within the mother. Many women discover abilities within themselves that they may not have noticed before. And these skills are not always taught in books, but many of them develop naturally throughout the experience itself. First and foremost, we become more attentive to our bodies. We begin to practice what we might call listening to the body. For example, when feeling tired, the body clearly signals the need for rest. And particularly in this period, learning to respect these signals becomes essential. And I personally noticed that I became more aware of my energy levels and I became more careful about managing my energy throughout the day. I also became more conscious about what I ate, what I drank, and what kinds of activities I engage in. And I remember one small example. It's a funny story, actually. So I was invited when I was like in my third or fourth month. I was invited to a friend's wedding, and I was eager to go. I was so excited. It had been a long time since I attended a wedding, and I told my family about it. I told my friends about it, and I prepared for it and everything. But in the end, I didn't go. Why? Not because I wasn't feeling well, but because I thought the music would be too loud and it could bother the baby. And we all know Moroccan weddings. So at that moment, I realized something. I realized that something had changed. Pregnancy had already started reshaping my priorities. Overall, nutrition, hydration, and physical movements suddenly become way more meaningful because I knew that they directly affect the well being of the baby. And this awareness often leads to healthier daily habits. Or at least we try, and we have the intention to. We also develop greater emotional sensitivity. Many mothers, I think, reports that they become more attentive to their own feelings and to the emotions of others during pregnancy. At the same time, a strong emotional connection with the unborn baby often begins to develop even before birth. This connection may appear through talking to the baby, imagining the baby's future, imagining the baby's features, how is it going to look like, or simply the feeling of sense of responsibility and care. Another skill that women tend to develop is, and I think all women are going to agree with me on this one, is patience. Patience becomes an essential skill. Pregnancy is a process that cannot be rushed and cannot be accelerated. So it teaches you to respect the rhythm of life and the natural timing of growth. Pregnancy may also awaken spiritual awareness. In fact, many women experience becoming more present in the moment and more reflective about the experience of life. As for me, pregnancy created moments of quiet reflection where I could contemplate the miracle of life developing inside my body. And it also made me appreciate simple daily activities such as walking, breathing fresh air, or spending peaceful time at home. These reflections can deepen the sense of gratitude and respect for life itself. Another important skill is adaptability. During pregnancy, I had to adapt my lifestyle, my habits, and even my priorities, even if that meant taking naps at work. So, when we observe these different dimensions together, we realize that pregnancy is not only a biological process, it is also a period in which a woman develops multiple human skills that combine body, mind, emotions, and spirit. And these emergent skills are not temporary. They often become part of woman's personality long after pregnancy ends. And the experience of pregnancy can also activate different forms of intelligence. For me, emotional intelligence became particularly important. When I first discovered that I was pregnant, I realized something important, which is my emotional state was not only mine anymore. It had become part of the baby's environment. And that realization changed the way I related to my own emotions. This awareness encouraged me to consciously cultivate emotional balance and self regulation. I realized that managing stress, maintaining calmness, and nurturing positive emotions were not only beneficial for my own well being, but also for the baby. And as a result, I paid closer attention to my feelings, practiced moments of reflection, and tried to create an emotional, peaceful environment. In this way, pregnancy became an opportunity to intentionally develop emotional intelligence. And by that, I mean learning to recognize and understand and guide my emotions with greater care and responsibility. Besides emotional intelligence, there is also bodily intelligence. And by that, I mean the ability to understand and respond the body's needs. During pregnancy, I learned to listen carefully to my body, to recognize fatigue, to recognize hunger, and the need of rest and comfort. In this sense, pregnancy can be seen as a period where different forms of human intelligence are awakened and straightened. Often, pregnancy brings important changes not only to the woman's lifestyle, but to her identity as well. Priorities may shift. At least for me, they certainly did. And even activities that once seemed very important may become less significant, while new concerns such as health, safety, and emotional well being become central. Many women also develop a stronger sense of responsibility. We become more conscious of our choices because those choices now affect another life. This is why I chose not to go to the wedding. I don't know if it would affect her, but it's what I had in mind, so I decided at last minute that I'm not gonna go. So this transformation can also influence relationships with partners, with family members, with coworkers, with friends. In this sense, pregnancy is not only the preparation for the arrival of a baby, but it is also the preparation for a new role and a new identity. So we spend 9 months preparing for the arrival of the baby. We read the books, we ask questions, we imagine how everything will happen. And then the moment arrives. So this is our second stop, which is childbirth. And of course, often it doesn't go exactly as planned. We often hear childbirth described as one of the most powerful experiences in a woman's life, or as a moment of discovering inner strength, right? Well, during the final weeks of my pregnancy, I also learned another important lesson, which is birth does not always unfold exactly as we imagine or plan. Like many mothers, I had prepared a birth plan and I had certain expectations about how the delivery would take place. However, when the moment arrived, the situation required an intervention. At first, it was different from what I had envisioned. But throughout this experience, I was lucky enough to be accompanied by a very supportive obstetrician who reassured me and guided me with such professionalism and kindness, which shifted my whole experience. Her presence reminds me of how important medical support and professional care are during pregnancy and childbirth. That experience taught me something very important, which is birth plans are useful, yes, but flexibility is essential because sometimes the best birth plan is simply a healthy mother and a healthy baby. In the end, I realized that even though the birth did not happen exactly as I had planned, the experience was still positive and meaningful. I felt supported, I felt safe, and I was so grateful that everything unfolded in the way it needed to. And this experience really taught me an important lesson about motherhood. And that lesson is sometimes we must learn to let go. We must learn to let go of rigid expectations and just trust the process of life. Now, to our third stop, which is after birth. After the baby is born, a new stage of learning begins. Motherhood introduces practical and emotional skills that develop quickly. For example, mothers develop strong observational skills. With time, we learn to understand the baby's needs through small signals like a sound, a movement, or facial expression. And very quickly, mothers develop an incredible skill. We start decoding cries like a language. This cry means hunger. This cry means sleep. And this cry means I have no idea, but something is definitely wrong. We all know those cries. It's an expression of discomfort. Caring for a newborn also requires balancing many responsibilities at once. So, time management and organization become important. Another essential skill is empathy. Mothers often become highly sensitive to the emotional states of their babies. And all these skills and others are developed naturally throughout daily interaction and experience. And I think one of the biggest challenges after childbirth is reorganizing daily life. At least for me, it was. Sleep patterns change significantly, and rest becomes very valuable. Like Kinza said, sleepless nights. And mothers learn to adapt new rhythms that revolve around the baby's needs. Breastfeeding or feeding routines also require patience and learning. Nutrition becomes important not only for the baby, but also for the mother's recovery and energy. So for many mothers, another challenge can be balancing family life with professional responsibilities. This period requires really flexibility and support from whoever you can have his help, family, friends, neighbors, and self-compassion. And learning to accept imperfection and to prioritize well-being becomes very important. As for the newborn babies, they may appear fragile and dependent, but they already possesses remarkable abilities. From the very beginning, babies can recognize voices. They respond to touch. They communicate through sounds, through facial expressions. They are constantly learning. They are constantly observing their environments and recognizing patterns. The sentence that I heard a lot while I was pregnant is that babies thrive on routines. They really can recognize patterns and routines, and they start building emotional connections. These early forms of communication show that intelligence begins to develop from the earliest stage of life. And understanding this helps parents appreciate the richness of the infant's world. Motherhood really invites us to practice observation and reflection. By observing a baby closely, we can learn to recognize subtle signals and emotional cues. This process encourages mindfulness and being present in the moments and attentive to small details. Reflection also helps mothers to understand their own emotional responses and personal growth. So, through observation and reflection, motherhood becomes not only a practical responsibility, but also a path of self discovery. The journey of pregnancy and childbirth offers many valuable life lessons, truly. And one of the most important lessons I would say is patience. Again, life unfolds its own rhythm, and some processes cannot be controlled, as we said, or accelerated. So it really taught me to let go and be more flexible. Another lesson is humility. Becoming responsible for a new life reminds us of the fragility and the preciousness of human existence. Motherhood also teaches compassion, empathy, and unconditional love. And these lessons extend far beyond the family. They influence how we see and how we interact with the whole world. I can go on and on, but to be short, in conclusion, motherhood can really be seen as a powerful school of human development. It strengthens emotional intelligence, empathy, adaptability, patience, and resilience. And through the experience of caring for another human being, mothers often develop a deeper understanding of self, of life, and of relationships in general. Motherhood really reminds us that intelligence is not only academic or intellectual, it is also emotional, it is relational, and ethical. And for this reason, motherhood can be understood not only as a family role, but also as a profound human experience that contributes to personal growth. And I thank you all for your attention.